I think I've got a coolant leak. So today I'm in front of my Porsche Cayenne S with the 4.5 liter V8, and the problem that has to be repaired today is there's a leak in the cooling system, and I tracked it down to the water pump. This pulley is actually, I know it's got the belt tensioner on it, but it's actually loose. The shaft inside the water pump is damaged and it's wobbling, so it's leaking out all the fluid. So I have to replace the pump behind this pulley. In order to, what I did first was I removed the air intake. There are plastic clips, pins holding this side here to this air box with the filter, and then the same on this side, and then to the throttle body there are two plastic pins. You move it. I just moved it and got it out of the way so you can see. So, and then I disconnected this intake from the bottom of the air, the housing. So before I remove the belt, I need to loosen the three T40 Torx bolts here. They're kind of aged and rusting, so I'm a little concerned about removing them, but I need the tension in order to crack them. Another issue is the tools that I have are too long, so I'm going to have to remove the radiator fan, which is not that bad a process. There are two connectors, 1 and 2. I've labeled this one A and B, and then on the sides there are two clips that you depress in and you pull the whole assembly out. It's a very tight fit, but in order to do this job I have to remove it. So I'm going to start getting some tools assembled, like a long flathead, a crescent wrench to relieve the pressure later on the belt tensioner. But my focus now is getting this rad fan out and then cracking those bolts. I want to disconnect these two rad fan electrical connectors, and the process isn't that difficult. I'm going to slip it out of its holder so that you can see what I'm doing. Pull it up. So what I need to do, this connector here has to be depressed down as I pull the two pieces apart like that. Then just push this aside. The same has to be done with this one here, but I cannot remove it out of any sort of holder, so you're going to have to trust me that it's pretty much the same process. And it's quite tight too. So for this second connector, I decided to put a little screwdriver in here to help guide the clip loose, like that. And there we go. Pull that aside. So that's the two connectors. There are some little hose clamps that can be released, like that, just to give you more space. And then I'm going to have to release this clip in here, but I need to get a proper tool in order to do that, to separate it. And then the next step will be the two clips on the side to lift it out. So I can't find my clip release tool, so I have these needle nose pliers that are bent that can act like a clip removal tool. So I slipped it on both sides of the clip, and I'm just going to gently try and remove it without breaking it. These things are, there we go. They're gentle, they're fragile, so you have to be very gentle. So that's out of the way, that's out of the way. The next step now is with a long flathead screwdriver. This clip right here has to, I don't know if you can see, has to be depressed in, and then the fan has to be pulled out on both sides. This one is easier than the one on this side. Let's see if I can show you where it is. It's very hard to see, but it actually is right right down there. This right here. So that has to be depressed in and then pulled up. So I'm going to try and do it with both hands while I'm filming. It's an awkward job. Okay, let me shut my camera off and get set up again. So it's been unclipped on that side, and you can see the separation. I've just unclipped it from the opposite side, and I'm trying now to carefully maneuver this rad fan out without doing any damage. So that's off to the side. Okay. Now this side. Okay. So slowly, and there we go. And then put it aside. So now with the radiator fan out of the way, you can see I've got more than ample room here to work on removing the pulley for the water pump, and then eventually undoing the water pump itself and removing it. So I'm going to lubricate, even though that won't do much, all three of these bolts so that I can crack them, because I am concerned, given that it's a Torx design, about stripping those three bolts. So for the first bolt here, I pushed it in as far as it possibly can go, and I was able to crack it. So now I need to do the other two. I'm hoping that they'll be as compliant. This one isn't. This one is. So I need to try this one again and be very careful not to strip it. There we go. So all three bolts are loose. What I can do now is release the tension off of the belt using the belt tensioner, slip off the belt so that I can remove the pulley. Now that I have loosened all three of these Torx T40 bolts, I need to relieve the pressure on this pulley so that I can remove it. And the only way to do that is to remove the belt. So I'm going to go over here with my crescent wrench to the belt tensioner, depress it, slip it off the pulley. Here, let me slip it off the pulley so that I can remove the belt from the water pump pulley. There we go. So the next step now is for me to remove all three of these bolts completely, and then pull away the pulleys to expose the water pump underneath. Three bolts have been removed. Now you can see just how damaged the water pump is. There is no way that it could properly function in this state, and actually I'm watching coolant drip out as I'm moving it around. This is still stuck to the water pump, so I'm gonna have to get a small hammer and start tapping it around in order to convince it to separate. So I'm gonna go get a small hammer, something that I can work in this area here in order to detach this. I'm finding the pulley to be quite stubborn. It doesn't want to detach from the end, from the shaft of the water pump. So I've set up this crowbar here, and I'm going to keep spinning it and tapping it to try and convince it to separate. So it must be rusted or bonded on somehow. So I need to be patient here and just gently keep rotating it, keep trying to hit the crowbar until it pops off. I put a little bit of lubricant on the inner side here and kept rotating and tapping, and you can see it finally popped out. So I need to put this and the bolts aside. I'll clean this up. Now the next step now is to start removing, I believe there's 8 Torx bolts holding this in place. I'm going to get the new one so that I can match it up and find out what size Torx bit it is in order to remove this water pump. So the Torx bit head size is an E10 Torx bit, and they're not in very tight. I think that the pound-feet torque for them is 7.5 pound-feet or 90 inch-pound, because I have a smaller torque wrench that's going to be able to fit in here in order to calibrate to such a low setting. But here's the new one, and you can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts that need to be removed. It's oriented like this. So I'm just going to work my way around and remove all of the affected bolts. So I've loosened all the bolts, and you can see the coolant coming out. I'll let it all run out, and then I'll remove the old water pump. The old water pump, you can see the damage that's been done. The turbine is actually cracked free, and this is metal. And what concerns me is that there's little pieces missing that I'm going to try and find. But since I'm draining the coolant, hopefully those will come out with the old fluid. Okay, it's time to get the new one prepped to be installed. Is to remove the old gasket here without damaging the mating surface. So I got this picking tool, and I'm just going to work it around to try and lift it off. This here is the guide for it, so that you can see matches up perfectly there. So I'm going to work my way around and then carefully remove it. You can see it's stuck under here. There we go. And that's the old one. Clean it up. I'm going to use some brake clean to try and clean off some of the grease around in order to make it as clean as possible for when I put the new gasket in place. There we go. So I'll clean that off, dry it, and then get it ready for the new gasket. Debris on the mating surface, so I grabbed the X-Acto knife and I'm going to be scraping it off as best I can all the way around to make sure that this surface is nice and clean and ready for the new gasket. Here's the new gasket to be installed. Now there are 2 mounting points, this one and this one here. This one goes on this little stubby metal dowel here, and then there's another one up at the top. So once you line those 2 up, it should fit on perfectly. Down there. It's been fitted in place, and now the next step is to install the new water pump into position and then start hand tightening all the 8 bolts to hold it into place. So I'm going to drop it down into place. Make it should go like that. And the tricky part is to start lining up the first couple. So I'm going to start with an easy one. So that one's in place. So what I'm going to do is go around and start installing all the other ones that I can easily reach. until it's all threaded into place, and then I'll torque them down. So one thing I failed to mention is I'm going to put a drop of Loctite on each and every one of these bolts, including the one for the pulley, so that when they're torqued down, they're going to dry and not vibrate free. I think that's an important step that I do with any sort of critical bolts. The next step, now that all of those bolts are hand tight, is to torque them to 7.5 foot-pounds, which is the equivalent of 90 inch-pounds. I don't have a foot-pound wrench that's calibrated that low. It starts at 20, so I have to use this one here. So 7.5 pound-feet equates to 90 inch-pounds. So I'm going to start torquing them down. There I am. Next one. And I'll go around and do them all the same way. The bolts for the water pump have been torqued down properly. The next step is to install the pulley. And there's 3 bolts, as you recall. So what I need to do is try and line it up the best I can to insert it on. Then I'm going to use a small screwdriver to line up one of the holes, like this. And then take one of the bolts and hand feed it through until the thread catches. So that's caught. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Loctite on the other 2, put them in, and then remove this, put Loctite, and then torque them all 3 down to 7.5 pound-feet. In order to torque these down to 7.5 pound-feet, I need to have tension on this. So I need to reinstall the belt. To put tension on this. So now that I have tension, I can torque all 3 of those down now. Dropped and clipped in the radiator fan on the clip there, and then the one right there, if you can see it. Now the next thing to do is to hook up the 2 electrical connectors. So as you recall, I labeled them before, B and A. So I'm going to hook up the B first, which is the bottom one. Let's get this one out of the way. Push it into place. There we go. And then the A, which is this one here, goes like this. I heard a click. Put it back into its housing. And so the radiator fan is back in place. Now the next step is for me to drain the bottom of the radiator to get all the remaining coolant out, and then go over here and open up the reservoir and start mixing the Porsche coolant with distilled water and fill it up. I think it takes, the capacity is somewhere between 18 and 21 liters. I'm not sure how much I'll be able to remove from the system, but that's the maximum load that the system will take of fresh fluid. In order to drain the coolant from the Cayenne, there is no drain plug at the bottom of the radiator, so you have to find the rad hose, the coolant hose, that's at the lowest point. And the one here that I'm illuminating is the lowest point at the bottom of the radiator. You can see I already have a little flathead screwdriver in the clip there. What you do is you insert a small screwdriver and lift up that clip. You don't have to remove it, just lift it up to detach it. And then you pull it away from its fitting and let the coolant drain. So I'm gonna lift up that clip and prepare myself to pull it out. I'll have to be careful because that's a plastic fitting. I don't want to do anything abusive or rough with it because it'll crack. Lifted it up, you can see it's up about, I don't know, a centimeter, half an inch. That's enough to release it. And the next step will be for me to start wiggling it off carefully so that I can release the remaining coolant in the system. And there it goes. Let it drain. Okay, I just pushed it back in place. Now I'm going to push the clip down. So now it's secure again. Yep, just testing it. Now it's secure. So now what I can do is start getting my concentrated coolant and distilled water, pre-mix it, and then start filling up the system. Here's a close-up of the coolant that came out. As you can tell, it's dirty, very contaminated. Very good time for me to change it now that I've changed the water pump. Fill the reservoir, then start the vehicle and put the heat and fan to maximum and run for 10 to 15 minutes. Continue this process until the reservoir is purged of air bubbles and the level is stabilized. Thanks for watching this comprehensive DIY tutorial on replacing the water pump and coolant in a Porsche Cayenne S. We hope you found it informative. Always dispose of old coolant in an environmentally friendly manner. Keep new and used coolant away from children and pets as it is highly toxic. The attractive color and sweet smell will attract attention. Please subscribe to our channel, Drive Chris Capredoni, and watch our other informative videos as your source for vehicle reviews, analysis, maintenance, and restorations.